Welcome to today's video on Unit 5, Topic 2, talking about polynomial and rational inequalities. So, a couple things. In order to solve a polynomial inequality, we'll exploit the rules for multiplying positive and negative values. Notice that if you multiply two positives, it gives you a positive. Multiplying a positive and a negative give you a negative. Negative and positive give you a negative. Negative and negative give you a positive. Positive times negative is negative. All right, and so on. So you have to keep that in mind as we do this. Additionally, we'll use the fact that positive and negative numbers have a relationship to the number 0. Right? A positive number is basically to the right, right? It's positive. A negative number is negative to the left. Using the properties above allow us to solve polynomial inequalities using the following steps. So we'll do that now. So first off, it says set the inequality equal to 0. So in order to do that, first here, we have to move the 6 over. And then we'll set this equal to 0. All right. So we're going to determine next, number 2, what numbers make the inequality equal to 0. So let's factor. So here the factors of 6 that add to negative 5 are negative 3 and negative 2. So that means the two numbers that make it equal to 0 are positive 3 and positive 2. So now we're going to draw a number line with a tick for each boundary point. So it looks like this. So 0 is over here, so we'll say 2 and then 3, right? So then basically what it says is what it wants you to do is to place an open or closed circle at each tick depending upon whether the boundary point is included or not. Well, since it's greater than or equal to, that means it's going to be a dot because that's included. And now what you're going to have to do is test numbers inside the interval. Inside the interval. So, for example, here, a number that's less than 2 would be like 0. A number that's between 2 and 3 would be like 2.5, 2.5. And a number greater than 3 would be like 4. So when we put those numbers in, we want to figure out, does it make the equation positive or negative? So let's see. So if we were to put 0 minus 3 and 0 minus 2, that would give us negative 3 times negative 2. That's a positive 6. So that means any number that I put in less than 2 is going to give us a positive answer. If I put 2.5 in, 2.5 minus 3, 2.5 minus 2, that gives you negative 0.5 times positive 0.5. So that's going to give you a negative number. And then if you put 4 in, notice that gives you 1 times 2. That's a positive number. So now, given the fact that we want all the numbers greater than or equal to, that means that we want all the values that are positive. So that means the domain, or the answers here, is from negative infinity to 2, bracket, because it includes it, right? Remember, negative infinity is over here, positive infinity is over here, union, and then 3 to infinity. So basically, it's going to look like this if you drew the actual graph. All right. So the next one here, we have to factor. So 3x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 0. So the factors of 3 that add to negative 2 are positive. Sorry, I did that wrong. The factors of negative 3 that add to negative 2 are negative 3 and positive 1. So when you factor this, since there's a 3 here, I'll go 3x minus 3 and 3x plus 1. So since there's a common factor here, I'll divide. So it's x minus 1 times 3x plus 1 equals 0. So when you set these equal to 0, you get x equals 1 and x equals negative 1/3. So put that on the number line. Negative 1/3 comes first. Positive 1 comes second. Remember, negative infinity's here, positive infinity's there. So when you choose a number less than negative 1/3, like negative 1. Choose a number between negative 1/3 and 1, like 0. And then choose a number bigger than 1, like 2. So when I put that number in here, well, 2 minus 1 is positive, and 3 times 2 plus 1 is positive, so that's going to make that positive. 0 in here gives you negative 1 times 1, which is a negative. Negative 1 gives you negative and negative, which is positive. So that means, since it's less than 0 now, you want all the negative ones. So that means that the answer, and understand that it's not less than or equal to, so that means it's an open circle here. Let me use a different color. Open circle here that connects the two. So it's between negative 1/3 and 1. All right, so here, remember we got to move everything over to the left. So we'll move the 4 and the 4x. So we have x to the third plus x squared minus 4x minus 4 is less than or equal to 0. Remembering that when there's 4 terms, and we set it equal to, when there's 4 terms, we are going to group. So we group the first 2 and the last 2. So factor out an x squared here, you get x squared plus 1. Factor out the negative 4, you get x plus 1. And then that means it's x plus 1 times x squared minus 4. And remember, x squared minus 4 does factor to x plus 2 and x minus 2. So there are 3 numbers that make it equal 0, negative 1, negative 2, and 2. So let's put those on the number line. So here's negative 2, here's negative 1, here's positive 2. So when we choose a number, remember negative infinity's here, positive infinity's there. So less than negative 2 is negative 3. Between negative 2 and negative 1 is negative 1.5. And between negative 1 and 2 is 0. And greater than 2 is 3. So when we put negative 3 in, notice that would give you a negative, and a negative. So 3 negatives are going to give you a negative, because negative times negative is positive, but then times another negative. So here, negative 1.5, that's negative here. That's positive here, so negative times negative. So negative times positive is negative, times negative gives you a positive. When you put 0 in, it's positive, positive, negative, so it's going to be negative. And then 3, when you put it in, it's positive, 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 which means it's positive. Since it's less than or equal to, you're going to put dots here right? Dots, because it's equal to. But now, since it's less than, you want all the ones that say negative. So basically, it's going to go this way and between those two. So it's going to be less than, from negative infinity to negative 2, bracket, union, negative 1 to 2. Yes. All right, last one here. Same kind of deal. We move everything over, so we get x to the third plus 3x squared minus x minus 3 is greater than 0. So now we're going to group to find the numbers that make it equal to 0. And then when you take out the negative 1 here, you get x plus 3. So notice one factor is x plus 3. The other one is x squared minus 1. And when you factor here, you get x minus 1 times x plus 1. So that means that there are three numbers, negative 3, positive 1, and negative 1. So when you put these numbers on the number line from left to right, this is negative infinity, this is positive infinity. So you get x equals negative 4, x equals negative 2, x equals 0, x equals 2. So when you put them in, negative 4 makes everything negative. So 3 negatives make a negative. Negative 2 will give you positive, negative, negative. So that makes it positive. 0 is going to make it positive, negative, positive, which makes it negative when you multiply. And 2 is going to be positive, positive, positive. So it's all positive. So notice here, because it's greater than 0, we want all the positives. And also, because it's just greater than, not greater than or equal to, you have open circles here. Oop. Too many. There you go. So it's going to go connect these and then go out forever there. So it's going to be from between negative 3 and negative 1, union 1 to infinity. All right, the next ones are rational inequalities. So solving rational inequalities is very similar to solving polynomial inequalities, where the number line technique is used. However, a very common mistake is automatically to clear fractions. So when you're solving a rational inequality, do not clear the fractions. All right, the process is as follows. First, let's set this equal to 0 and figure out what numbers make the denominator and the numerator equal to 0. So for the denominator, it's x equals 4. For the numerator, it's x equals 4. For the denominator, it's x equals 5. Right? So set the numerator and denominator equal to 0. Now remember, for the denominator, it can never equal 0. So this is always an open circle. Even if it says less than or equal to, because the denominator can never equal 0. So when you put these numbers on the number line, you know that 4 is a dot, but 5 is an open circle. Now, let's pick numbers. So number less than 4 is like 0, 4.5, and then 6. So now, if we put 6 or 0 in, we get negative over negative, which is positive. 4.5, so 4.5 minus 4 over 4.5 minus 5. So that's like a positive number over a negative number. So that gives you a negative. And then if you put in 6, it gives you 2 positives. So when it says it's less than 0, you're looking for the negative. So that means it would connect between the two here. So the answer is between 4 and 5. It includes 4, but not 5. Now here it's similar, except now it's greater than or equal to 1. So what you have to do is move the 1 over and then get a common denominator. So notice, since the denominator is x minus 5, 1 would be the same as x minus 5 over x minus 5. So then when you combine these, you have to distribute the negative here. So it's going to be x minus 4 minus x plus 5. So notice the x's cancel out, and you get 1 over x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 0. So now that you have it greater than or equal to 0, you can proceed with the process. So the numbers that would make there is no number that makes the numerator equal 0, but 5 would make the denominator equal 0. And remember, since it makes the denominator equal 0, it has to be an open circle. So let's choose numbers less than 5 and greater than 5, so like 0 and 6. And so when you put 0 in here, you get 1 over negative 5, which is negative. When you put 6 in here, you get 1 over 1, which is positive. And since you're looking for the greater than or equal to, you're looking for the positive, which means it goes that way. So it's going to be from 5 to infinity. All right, so there's 2 more here. So let's move the 2 over now. And then get a common denominator. So now we have to multiply x plus 3 over x plus 3, the numerator, by 2. So distribute the negative with the 2. So it's x plus 1 minus 2x minus 6 over x plus 3. So there we have it to where it's less than or equal to 0. So now let's set the numerator equal to 0. So that means negative x equals 5, x equals negative 5, and the denominator means that x equals negative 3. So those are the 2 numbers that you put on the number line. Negative 5 comes first because it's smaller. And then you choose numbers. So we'll choose negative 6, we'll choose negative 4, and we'll choose 0. So when I put in negative 6, the opposite of negative 6 is 6 minus 5, so it's positive. But then the bottom's negative, so that means it's going to be a negative value. Negative 4, 4 minus 5 is negative over negative, which is positive. And then 0 would give you a negative. So now remember, it's less than or equal to, so the numerator can equal 0, but the denominator cannot. And then since it's less than, you're looking for the negatives. So therefore, it's going to go to the left here, and then it's going to go to the right there. So it's going to be from negative infinity to negative 5 with a bracket, but then a parenthesis, negative 3 to infinity. So here it's already greater than or equal to 0. So what we want to do is set this equal to 0. Now we have to factor to solve the numerator and denominator, factor. So it's x minus 4, x plus 1, and x minus x plus 5, x minus 1. So that means the numbers that make the numerator equal to 0 are 4 and negative 1, and the denominator would be negative 5 and positive 1. So when you put these on the number line, negative 5 comes first, then negative 1, then 1, then 4. Now remember, the denominator ones, it can't equal it, so it's open circle. The numerator ones, we'll put a dot because it's greater than or equal to. So now we have to test. So negative 6, negative 2, 0, 3, and 5. So when we put negative 6 in, we get negative and negative, which means the top is positive, and then negative and negative, which at the bottom is positive, so that's a positive. Put negative 2 in, so that's a negative here and a negative, so that means the top's positive, but then this is positive and negative, so bottom's negative, so it's negative. 0 is going to be a positive because you have negative times positive, which is negative, and positive times negative, so negative over negative. When you put 3 in, you get negative over positive, which means it's negative, and positive, so negative over positive is negative. And then 5, positive over positive, gives you positive. So now, since it says it's greater than or equal to, you're looking for all the positives. So that means it goes this way, connects these two, and goes out. So when you write it as an interval, it's going to be negative infinity to negative 5, union bracket negative 1, parenthesis 1, union bracket 4 to infinity. All right, that concludes our video for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or ask me during the next class. All right.